It's critical. So I do see that as one of the absolute traits of successful online business owners. They know their numbers. They're in business. If you want to be the fashion designer and not the business owner, be the fashion designer. That's fine. But if you want to be the business owner, the $1 million business owner, the $20 million business owner, the $100 million business owner, you need the $100 million business owner skills. Hello and welcome back to the E-Hustle. This episode is brought to you by Nexus Advisory. So today we're going to talk about how to create an online empire in 5 steps. Now, most new businesses fail. We know that, and e-commerce does have a high failure rate, but when you get it right, it can be astronomical. It can absolutely change your life forever. I've seen that time and time again. It's certainly changed my life and the life of a lot of people I know as well. So I've coached a lot of entrepreneurs, hundreds of them. I've seen 5 traits that I think make the difference between those that succeed and those that don't. Now, when I go live on Instagram, I get this question almost weekly, which is, what are the traits that you see in successful e-com businesses or founders? Now, today I'm going to break down 5 of the steps that I think are pretty important when you're building your own online empire. I'll go through the 5 steps now. So I think the first step in creating an online empire is that you have to have a better idea. So ideas are everywhere. Most of them aren't that good. Let's be honest with that. So I don't necessarily think you need a new idea, but you do need a better idea. So you've got to ask yourself, what problem do I solve? How am I better than the competitors? Weak ideas equals why most businesses fail. So strong, defensible ideas gives you that foundation for growth right off the bat. And we see it time and time again. Elon Musk famously puts no marketing budget behind Tesla because he thinks that that money is better spent on R&D, research and development. Now, I tend to agree. I think you need an advertising budget, but there is a correlation between brands that scale quickly and brands that have really, really good, well thought out products. So I do think there's a bit of an issue where brands settle on product. And I mean new brands, but I also mean existing brands. So quite often when I'm seeing a brand challenging them to grow and they sort of say, well, I say, well, where's your next range? And they say, here it is. I've got these 6 or 7 items. And I said, okay, great. Show me now the bigger range. What did you reject? And they're sort of like, well, everything's here. I said, you've put everything that you sampled into production. Now, I've got this saying, some of you will remember the ad from the 2000s, which was, John West, the fish that John West reject, right? So the point being that the fish that John West reject are still great. So I think you've got to take that mentality. So when you see a really good business, you walk into their sampling room and you'll say, oh my God, this didn't make it. You didn't put that into production. So yeah, there was no room for it because we had this, which is better. That's where you want to challenge yourself to get to, guys. When you walk into the great brands, that's what they're doing. They're not saying, here's a product, let's put it out there. They're allowing themselves enough room to fail, right? So it's really important when it comes to product. Now, step 2 in building that e-com empire is learning the trade. So e-commerce, it doesn't just mean that you're in fashion or beauty or sport or technology. You're in e-commerce. So there's no good being a fantastic creative that might be a phenomenal clothing designer of dresses or suits, opening up your store and thinking, amazing, here we go, I'm going to make so much money. You still need to learn the trade. And I always say, just because I know where the timing belt in my car is, it doesn't mean that I should go and attempt to change it. I'm not a mechanic. E-commerce is a trade and you do need to learn the trade. So it's important that you take time to learn the foundations. And I don't just mean conversion rate, AOV, LTV, CAC, and all those fun acronyms that we talk about. Although in my book, I do write and say, if you can't tell me what these 10 acronyms are, you're not ready to launch your business. I also mean you've got to know your margins, your AOVs, your conversion rates. So often there's a trait here that businesses who are failing that I speak to, they could be doing millions of dollars, but they're not making any profit. I start to talk about what are your COGS, what's your margin. They don't know. Oh, it's roughly this, roughly nothing. Your COGS, your margin, you're trying to run a multi-million-dollar business and you don't know your margins, you don't know your numbers. It's inconceivable for me to think that. So I do think you need to learn the trade. I think you need to become good CEOs, good founders, learn the metrics. It's critical. So I do see that as one of the absolute traits of successful online business owners. They know their numbers. They're in business. If you want to be the fashion designer and not the business owner, be the fashion designer. that's fine. But if you want to be the business owner, the $1 million business owner, the $20 million business owner, the $100 million business owner, you need the $100 million business owner skills. So I think that's a real deficit here. Take the time. It's coachable. It's largely what we work on in our groups. It'll change your business. So number 2 is definitely learning the trade. Number 3, in terms of what I see as the third most important thing in building a business empire in e-commerce is commitment. So the biggest blocker is fear. What if I fail? What will people think? So that's the fear of putting yourself out there, the fear of getting on socials, of course, but the fear of starting that business. What if it doesn't work? What will people think of me? Now, the truth is you will doubt yourself and you may fail, right? Entrepreneurs will feel that and they'll do it anyway. So you do have to overcome that. There's no use being negative all of the time and sort of saying, well, I don't think I can do it, or this won't work, or this isn't going to work. It hasn't worked for me. You've told me something that hasn't worked. You've got to back yourself and go after it. Now, you've got to be calculated in your approach. There's no question. I don't want people to jump into businesses underprepared. But to be a successful entrepreneur, you do need to take some calculated risks. If you don't back yourself, why would your competitors? If you don't back yourself in your product, how can you expect your customers to? Now, step 4 in one of the keys to success in e-commerce, and it comes back to the idea in point 1 a little bit, but it's focus on the product, not just the marketing. And so ads amplify things, they don't fix things. Let's repeat that. Ads amplify things, they don't fix things. And sometimes amplification isn't the issue, it's the product that's the issue. So ads can amplify a great product and take it to new levels, no question. What they can't do is amplify a bad product and take that to the same level, right? So let's focus back on the product. So as an example, a client used the same agency, a real example. So they were using the same agency as Louis Vuitton. So great agency, but really poor results because the product was average. So what I mean by that is they said, Paul, this agency, they're not working out for me. And I said, actually, that agency is good. I know them. They're getting a ROAS of 6 for this other brand. And the brand owner says, yeah, but they're getting me a 1.5. I said, well, actually, you're using the same account manager. You're using the same strategy. So you tell me the difference. So you don't want to be one of those people that bounces around agencies and so on, thinking that that's the issue. It's really important to hold the mirror up to you and your product and say, is my product actually strong enough? Am I putting enough time and research and development and resources into developing amazing product? Or is all my time, energy, and money going into amplifying a product that might not be as good as it should be, or it could be good, but you haven't evolved to the next product and therefore your growth has plateaued. So I actually think that's really important. If you're settling for okay, as I said earlier, I think that's going to be okay. But if you want a great business, well, then great products are the growth engine to great businesses. So I think that's important, is to focus on the product. Now, another great trait when it comes to building an empire is to be disciplined. Now, hard work, doubt, and setbacks, they're all part of the journey. I can promise you that. It's going to be hard. People looking for done for you, please do it for me. It doesn't work that way. It's really important to acknowledge that you're going to have setbacks all the time. At startup, at 100,000, at $1 million, it doesn't matter. You're going to have setbacks. So an example that I've got of that is one of my clients, and I don't think you'll mind me saying this, one of my first ever clients, in fact, the first, talk about him a lot, is Vic, who owns Muscle Republic. Now, Vic, in his early days, slept on the floor of his warehouse there in Brookvale. And he didn't have the money he told me, I don't have the money to take a girl out on a date or to order Uber Eats or whatever. And now, Vic has a business that's over $30 million and a year and highly profitable. And he stuck at it more than anybody else I've probably ever met. And he just backed himself. He kept learning though. He didn't make the same mistake over and over. He would always bring people in to learn and to do things better. And eventually, through persistence, he's now changed his life. And that's typical. What's more typical, unfortunately, is people who don't do that and they give up. So it's just important to embrace the challenge, never stop learning, but also be okay that setbacks are okay, and you're going to need to be disciplined if you're going to be in business. So for me, I have a 5-day rule. So if I can do something 5 days in a row, it sticks. Whether that's exercise at 6 a.m., whether that's do 10,000 steps walking at night, whether that's a business practice that I want to try. If I can do it 5 times in a row, I've broken the back of it and I can stick to it. So that sort of discipline of being in your calendar, being organized, those things actually are traits of highly successful people. And what I'll say there is entrepreneurship is a little bit like sport, I think. If you put in the reps, you'll get the results. So it's not just brilliant individuals making money in e-commerce. There are disciplines and there are frameworks and there are people that can be taught and there are people that are persistent that eventually scale to amazing heights. So in closing for the 5 traits of a successful online business, I think let's recap. We've got 1, have a better idea. 2, take the time to learn the trade. 3, commit. 4, focus on the product more than the marketing. And 5, be disciplined. Don't worry too much about the setbacks. Now, if you can get these 5 right, you're already miles ahead of most new businesses. So remember, success isn't about luck, it's about execution. So what I want to say, guys, is that building an online empire takes work, but if you keep showing up, you can get there. I've seen it time and time again. Once again, thanks to Nexus Advisory for sponsoring this ep of the E-Hustle. If you like what I do, don't forget to give it a like, give it a share, give it a comment, rate it 5 stars. Go ahead and follow me on Instagram @PaulWaddy Ecommerce. See you next time.